2005 saw the director Christopher Nolan helm one of the most iconic characters of all time in his film, Batman Begins. This movie is also seen as the Batman's first appearance in a live-action capacity for the first time in 8 years since that one. The cast of this film alone is insanely good. We have Christian Bale in the role of Batman / Bruce Wayne, Michael Keaton as Alfred, Morgan Freeman as Lucius Fox, and Liam Neeson as Ra's al Ghul. Our nipples are about to get hard because we're entering the Nolan-verse. So guys, if you have not seen any of the Dark Knight films, what are you doing? What's up everybody, welcome back to The Hes Project. I'm John Rodalaza, and today we're continuing on the Batman movie review marathon in the lead up to Robert Pattinson's The Batman, directed by Matt Reeves. And we've already covered the 90s films. Yes, I'm just lumping in the 1989 Batman. If you haven't seen my reviews for them, go check them out. But right now, we're diving deep into the Nolan-verse, the Dark Knight trilogy, one of the most revered trilogies of all time. And we're kicking things off with Batman Begins. Now, I actually did grow up with the Dark Knight trilogy and while also watching the 90s Batmans as well, but this was the new thing out when I was little and I loved it, dude. Batman Begins is such a badass movie. It's a really great origin story, and we don't get a whole lot of origin stories these days anymore because there's so many different ways you can go about starting a franchise with a new character. It doesn't always have to be how he went from zero to hero, but this movie does it, and it does it in a really interesting way, in a really good way, one that while revisiting the film I kind of loved even more this time around. So let's talk about it. Christian Bale in this movie as Bruce Wayne, I really like. He's really good in it. I love how he can balance the playboy billionaire side with his darker half, how he's struggling with that duality of maintaining those halves to the public, how he's gonna keep his darker half, which is Batman, which we'll get into Batman soon. I love his portrayal of Bruce Wayne just in general. I think it's really good. It stands out amongst the 90s ones in my opinion. I can appreciate what Michael Keaton brought to the role, but I just gravitate towards Christian Bale's performance a lot more. I like it, and he's just really good in the role. Christian Bale's Batman, though, is on a whole nother level. I think he's one of my favorite Batmans of all time. This is including Ben Affleck's Batman, and I did review Batman v Superman, Justice League, the Justice League, and Zack Snyder's Justice League, so you can go check those videos out on the channel. I did review it, and you can see how much I love that version of Batman. I mean, come on, I totally forgot I was wearing this, but yeah, you can tell I really loved Ben Affleck's portrayal, and I think it's up there. I can't tell you which one I prefer more because it's unfair. Like, Ben Affleck is so good, yet he never got his own solo film, and friggin' Christian Bale got 3, so it's hard to compare the two, but they're up there, and I think they're definitely, in my opinion, they're better than the 90s ones. Liam Neeson in this movie as Ra's al Ghul, I think he's awesome, dude. He first starts off as Henry Ducard. He's hiding his true identity. That's like the whole thing with the League of Shadows. That's the main takeaway that Bruce has when he almost joins the League of Shadows. That's the whole concept of the Batman. So when he was about to join the League of Shadows, he says to Bruce, "You're about to join, but you gotta kill this one dude." He looks at him and says, "I'm not an executioner." And then he ends up setting the place on fire, killing dozens of ninjas. You're not really paying attention to that one little detail when you're 6, but when you're a full-blown adult, Bruce killed ninjas. Anyways, going back to Liam Neeson real quick, his portrayal as Ra's al Ghul is my favorite. One of my favorite portrayals of a character in this whole trilogy. Honestly, it's really good. Dude, I believed almost everything he was saying. When they were fighting on the ice, you know, when Bruce was wearing the beige and Liam Neeson is wearing like all black, that whole montage of him training Bruce is amazing, dude. It's edited well, it's shot well, dude, it's acted well. Every aspect about this, filmmaking wise and performance wise, is just amazing. When Ra's bests Bruce and sends him straight into the freezing cold water, he's got him in the next scene against a fire, he's rubbing his arms and he says, "Rub your chest, your arms will take care of themselves." And I believe that. For years, I believed that. But in actuality, your arms aren't generating heat. They're gonna fall off. But I believed him because Liam Neeson is that damn good. He's such a great actor, and it's a shame that he makes these kind of generic looking action movies these days. I'm just not interested in them, but I would love to see him in roles like this, you know, in like super compelling films like Batman Begins. I want to see him in more films like this. I mentioned in my 90s Batman films that I really do appreciate the actor who played Alfred in there. He was a really good addition, but he didn't really have much to do. Like, yeah, he was there for Batman whenever he needed him, but it just didn't feel like that was a focal point. They make it a point in the entirety of the Batman trilogy, and especially in this one, Batman Begins. Michael Caine's Alfred is, in fact, like, he's the guy in the chair, and he's the emotional support for Bruce Wayne in here. Same thing with Rachel Dawes, but you get more of that with Alfred in here, and I really do love me some Michael Caine. He's freaking phenomenal, dude. I love him in this role. He's so good, and I want a butler. I want him to be my butler. He's so cool. Lucius Fox, played by Morgan Freeman, is also really good in the movie. I love their dynamic, their relationship between him and Bruce. Like, it's almost like a uncle-nephew type thing. He's got a bunch of cool gadgets he lends to his nephew, goes to play with them, and then trashes them. It's all good, though. I just really like how they, you know, evolve that relationship in the next two films, and it's a good start here. I love it. I also really love the vibe of Gotham in here. It's very run down, beaten. It looks just gross. Like, there's just smoke and steam everywhere. You're like, wow, this looks like a like, you don't want to live here. Why are people living here? Why does Batman still have a job? Because people should not be living in Gotham. It looks terrible here. Oh my god, and I almost forgot to mention Gary Oldman as Commissioner Gordon. He's not commissioner yet. He's what, deputy? I don't know what the hierarchy is for police. It's Gordon. He's in here. He's got the mustache at least. We don't have to wait until season 6 of Gotham for him to grow a damn mustache. But, you know, I really love me some Gary Oldman in this movie. I haven't seen a whole lot of Gary Oldman films, honestly. Like, a lot of his stuff in his heyday, like, none of that. I've seen maybe 4 or 5 films, and the majority of them are Batman. Still, though, I really do appreciate his portrayal and what he brings to the table with these films, especially Batman Begins. It's a nice setup to his character, and his arc throughout the films is incredible, and I love him, dude. He's such an important member of the supporting cast. Like, you cannot have the Dark Knight films without the character of Gordon. Like, he is so integral to the story. Also, before we get out of here, the look of the Batman in here, I think, is menacing as hell, man. I love the outfit. In some ways, some days, I'll wake up and I'll be like, yo, Batman Begins suit? Kind of better than the Dark Knight suit sometimes. Sometimes it is. Sometimes. He even has the same cowl as a lot of them from the 90s did, but you know how there's some shots with Michael Keaton in his costume, and it's got that straight cowl where he can't really move his neck as much. He has straight up these jagged movements where he's straight up moving his body and his shoulders, his head. It's so ridiculous. And the voice, honestly, it's really good in here. He does deepen it quite a bit, makes it more raspy and unrecognizable in the next 2 films. And I don't have an issue with it. I do like it, but if it was my honest opinion, I probably would rather go with the voice he chose for this one. It's along the lines of Bruce Wayne's voice, just slightly deepened. He doesn't go super raspy with it. I feel like he borders that line of just almost ridiculous in the next 2 films, and that's about one of the only little nitpicks that I'll have with those other 2 films, because I really do like those. So guys, that's it for Batman Begins. It's a really good film, and it was probably one of my first Christopher Nolan films, to be honest. I hadn't seen any of his work prior to Batman Begins until later on in life, like just in the last 5-10 years. But Batman Begins showed me that, you know, Batman can be dope still. Like, you know, forego all of that cheese from the 90s. He could be taken seriously with the right director, and I believe Christopher Nolan was a fantastic director to helm this type of a project. This is one of the films that made me fall in love with Christopher Nolan's style and his sensibility for filmmaking, because, dude, he is a master at his craft. I love a lot of his films, and I gotta do a marathon of Christopher Nolan films at some point. This is just a little teaser because it's Batman, and we're celebrating Batman in the lead up to Robert Pattinson's The Batman, so eventually I do want to review other Christopher Nolan films because he's genuinely one of my favorite directors, and I love his work. Real quick, guys, I cannot believe I forgot to talk about the joint score between Hans Zimmer and James Newton Howard for Batman Begins. It's It's my favorite Batman theme, honestly. I really do like what Hans Zimmer eventually created for Ben Affleck's Batman on his own. But man, there's something special about the Dark Knight theme. Not just the Dark Knight theme, but the entire soundtrack, dude. All of the little themes that are playing throughout all the scenes, all of the smaller scenes with the lawyers, with Rachel Dawes, with the villains. The music in here is amazing. It's one of my favorite soundtracks, and it just gets better and better with the second film and the third film, but we'll get to that, guys. So I just had to throw this in here. A huge shout out to Hans Zimmer and James Newton Howard for a legendary soundtrack. So guys, let me know down below, have you ever seen Batman Begins? And if your answer is no, go change that. And leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you're new, and be sure to stick around because I'm currently covering Peacemaker. It's another DC project. There's 2 more episodes left of that series, and I just put up episode 6 reviews yesterday, so you might want to go check that out. As well as the Book of Boba Fett. I'm also covering that show. We got 1 episode left, and the predictions are out of this world. I don't know where to go with my predictions. I'm just going to sit there and wait for the episode to play in front of my eyes because I've been wrong about the last 2 episodes. So guys, there's a bunch of content coming to the channel, and as I always say, there is more to come.